So, Lion and Dragon. Yes. I'll show you the whole thing. Yeah. Okay. So, Lion and Dragon is an OSR role playing game. It is fucking fantastic. I just have to throw that out there. Why is it fucking fantastic, though? It's fucking fantastic because it's very different from anything you've ever experienced while also somewhat familiar. It uses retro D&D mechanics, while at the same time introducing elements that are often left out just for convenience sake, or just the ability to kind of expedite things that actually give things a medieval feel. So what I love about Lion and Dragon is it actually provides rules that are more facilitating of a medieval experience. So while Lamentations of the Flame Princess is what basically a step in the right direction, this is, in my opinion, just it's the perfect experience for what you're looking for. It was originally just a campaign guide, or not campaign guide, basically some house rules for RPG pundits. Campaign in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, as he explained, but morphed into its own system in a way, which is, in my opinion, a fantastic thing to do. The Vancian spellcasting of Lamentations and just D&D in general before it has always been a big turnoff for me, just because it feels as though magic isn't very risky. It either happens or it doesn't, and when it doesn't, nothing bad really happens. And it's just this resource that you use it until you can't use it anymore, and then you need to sleep. And in modern gaming, such as Fifth Edition, unless you're constantly harassing your players, with random encounters, which, trust me, I do that on occasion, it just the proper vibe isn't really there. This is a much more fatal system than even Lamentations is. In Lamentations, whenever you level up, you get your extra hit die, basically, every time, until you get to a certain point. Then it peters out to just being add your constitution, I think it is. Lion and Dragon, you have a very cool leveling mechanic where you can either pick one benefit that is on a list, or you can roll on the table and you get two, which is something that discourages min-maxing, and also just kind of adds a level of variation between your character classes, or within your character classes even. So you may have a fighter that is going to have more attacks. You might have a fighter that's going to have just better saving throws. It just, you never really know. Speaking of, I do like the fact that this is a game that very strongly protects the niche uses of classes. That's something that's very sorely handled, in my opinion, with the most recent edition of Dungeons and Dragons, where you have healers that are ubiquitous. You have the bard can heal, the druid can heal, the sorcerer can heal. You just have to have the right subclass. But this is a game where a cleric is the one who heals. A cleric is the one who has particular social benefits, and that's another thing that I love, is that the social structure and hierarchy is baked into the game. Because of that, I also would highly recommend that if someone is ever going to pick up this game, they need to keep that in mind. You're just not going to have this experience with this system. Well, you can, but it kind of defeats the purpose. To just jump in and do things however you please if you're someone who's born a peasant, which that actually is in the system. When you roll up your character, you roll up their social background, and You roll stats 3d6 in order, and your stats kind of dictate what classes are available to you. The classes are fairly simple. You have the fighter, the cleric, the magic user. I can't magician or magistrate. Um, the rogue, which I think it's just called the rogue. The barbarian is just the Scotsman because this is something that takes place in medieval England, and so the Scotsman is your barbarian, and I find that's kind of a cool way to look at things. Considering the setting and the kind of lifestyle of the Scots back in this scenario. And then the Kimry Travelers, I think they're called, are the last one. And each one of the classes has its own particular stat that it needs to be at least a certain number for you to use that class. It uses level 0 adventurer mechanic, which is something that is going to be hit or miss with people. Personally, I enjoy it. But it just kind of depends on what you're wanting to do with it. I would say that just given the nature of this role playing game, it's going to very strongly require that you have players of a certain taste. I run 2 groups typically, 5th edition. I've been trying to get them to get into other systems. We actually did a Dragon Age game recently, and that was fun, but it just kind of petered out just because I lost interest. But in any case, some of them took to the idea, some didn't. And one of the things is you don't know what kind of character you're going to play. You don't just make up what your background is. And to some people, that's a turnoff. To me, it's exciting, because you get to discover who your character is. You get to try and make what you can with what you're given. And that's something that's a very appealing thing to me. But to some, they want their special character to have this unique, fragile history and all these things. And this is a game where it actually spells out things from your past as well. Along with just your social status. So, delving deeper into that, it's not just, you're not a noble, so some people aren't going to treat you as a noble. It's not that simple. If you're of a certain class, then you're entitled to wear certain colors. If you're not a royalty, then you don't go around wearing purple, unless you want to get bitch slapped or jailed. All that kind of stuff is spelled out in here as far as the legal system and all that. And really just to anyone who is even thinking of getting Lion and Dragon, I highly, highly, highly recommend Dark Albion. Just because it is going to spell out all the things that you might need to know for a medieval setting if you're not an historian, which I'm certainly not. I've played through my fair share of medieval video games. I've read up on some historical things, but I'm not a historian. So there are certain contexts that I wouldn't have, and I'd just be pulling out of my ass. And some people aren't comfortable with that, and that's fair. You could, if you would like to, and you didn't really want to pick up another source book, which the pricing is fair. It's not too terrible, especially considering Wizards of the Coast would probably charge twice as much for it. Given its size and all the artwork and everything. But you could just take what you can get from other works of entertainment, literature. I was even suggesting that if you are familiar with Kingdom Come Deliverance, or I was about to say Mount and Blade, but no, not really. Mount and Blade is pretty simplistic in regards to social interactions and things like that. But Kingdom Come Deliverance is such a immersive experience where you actually get to live the life of a peasant that it gives you a really good idea of how these things work. That would make it a lot easier for you to run a game in this scenario. So yeah, it really provides situations that you don't typically get. I've played a lot of fifth edition games, and I always kind of felt as though my characters weren't that different from everyone else, unless I just specifically said, no, trust me, they're different. Because this tragic backstory or all these kind of things, and the scenarios in the world tended to be oh, we're just outsiders dealing with a problem or something of that nature. There really wasn't a whole lot of societal investment or fear of repercussions or anything like that. And whenever you have a game like this, you're going to have situations where you're having to deal with hierarchies that are embedded in the structure of the world. So you're going to be encouraged to participate and not just be vagabonds. If you are going to be vagabonds, things are going to be pretty risky. If you are going to be a heretic, you're probably going to get grabbed and killed, maybe, unless you play it really well. If you are playing with people in your party that are of a different social class, then it's going to be unbecoming for you to speak to them in a manner that is not befitting of your station whenever you're in public. Not to mention, the way that they might react on their own. Given the scenario, a person who is a cleric, which this is a game that actually makes clerics very cool. They could easily just be like, hey, this heathen right here, they just spoke bad about me. I think I'm going to, have them burned at the stake. It's not likely going to happen just because clerics in this scenario are very I keep saying scenario, this system are kind of it kind of leans towards the actually devout in their faith kind of thing, so they're not going to just wantonly abuse their power, very likely, which is another thing I like. There's just a lot to like here. What do I not like? There's really not a whole lot that I don't like about this system. It errs on the side of realism to such an extent that it's going to turn people off with the way that magic works, I think. But that's just kind of a niche thing, basically, it references realistic practices and things of that nature in order to dictate how magic works. So, for instance, there's an invisibility spell, and what you have to do involves a lot of ridiculous stuff. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like take off your shoe and then like turn around and it's something bizarre, but something that obviously draws attention to yourself, and it makes it where you can actually go invisible. So it's bizarre, but very cool, and it's based off of the real stuff. The demon summoning is very cool, and it takes up a relatively decent chunk of the material, because it's something that's often you would rather hand wave it, but in this case, it's something that's very strongly built into the system because of the way that magic was thought to have worked, in medieval era. You would imagine that people would summon demons and have them do commands, and that's basically what it is. There's also alchemy and astronomy and I think it might be astrology. It's astrology. I'm sorry. And it might be astrology. That's going to bother me. It has a lot on poisons, which I appreciate. It has a lot on just expenses. It has a very simplified economy, so you don't have all these crazy conversions trying to figure out how to just conduct business. Thank God. Astrology. I was right. Okay. So, yeah, the demon summoning is very cool. Just the art in general is really cool. I don't want to show too much because I want people to actually buy it instead of just, like checking stuff out. But You know, the style is very well, it's very old school medieval, and so it's just really cool. I mean, I don't want to go too far, too much into the art because honestly, for me, I don't typically buy these things for the art. I mean, I love the tables, I love the information, and I love mechanics and anything that's kind of evocative of a certain feeling. So art's just kind of it's just you know the icing on the cake, and in this case, it's very good icing. None of that fondant bullshit. Um, what else do we have here? This one kind of well, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to show off all the art. So yeah, the miracles are really cool. It uses kind of the mechanic that's similar to the Dungeon Crawl Classics mechanic, where well, in a way, where you know you roll to make things happen, and if you fail, then you don't get to do that spell again. Um, there is the there. This is one thing that's something to consider. It is a monotheistic society, so that might turn some people off. The deity referenced in the material is the unconquered sun, which is obviously basically the Catholic Church, but it's a nice it's a nice touch. There's some pretty cool information about it in Dark Albion. It's been a little bit of time since I read Lion and Dragon. That was the first one I got, and then I just kind of sat on it for a little bit before doing a full in-depth video. But there's a lot more information, I feel like, in Dark Albion, and it's different enough, but it hits a lot of the right points. And some people might feel kind of odd about having a parallel of Christianity in in their role-playing games. It doesn't bother me personally. Whenever I do run my Lion and Dragon game, it will be with the unconquered sun rather than just being like, it's just Christianity. Let's just, just because I feel kind of odd about people sitting at my table saying, in the name of Jesus Christ, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a very cool system. It doesn't cost much. You can get, you can get the PDFs. I would recommend just getting the book. I got mine off of, where was it? Drive-Thru RPG, print on demand, and quality is great. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's perfect. It didn't take that long to get here either. And same thing. Well, Dark Albion. How did I get Dark Albion? I may have Amazoned that one. I'm not sure. But same thing. They're just great quality books. It uses a crit table, which I like. Adds a little bit of depth there. The combat mechanics are relatively simple. As I said before, it seems to be basically Lamentations with improved mechanics, and that are more conducive to this style of gameplay. And it really captures the feel of basic medieval warfare, where somebody might die in a really stupid way, that's completely unforeseen. Just it kind of captures that feeling, which I think is missing from a lot of games. You can pull that off even in 5th edition, at decent levels, but usually it's because you're being too stubborn to run away when you really should. So yeah, give it a shot. It's a cool system, and there aren't enough people playing it from what I've seen, and I definitely intend to get people to start playing it myself. But I have a million systems I'm wanting to play right now, so that's it. Boom.